everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents. Glad you all could join us today. I have a very special guest for this next segment. We don't talk about this a lot on Conversations Live, the radio show, or Cyrus Webb Presents, but we're going to get all into love, maybe not love, relationships, and a lot of more stuff with our next guest. Michelle Cuttino is joining us today. We're about to go live on Amazon Live. We're going to do some quick housekeeping, though, to make sure everything is all set here. If you guys do not have her new book, it's called The Unsuccessful Relationship Guide. You all can see it there. Michelle, I was doing some practicing earlier to make sure we don't get a lot of ring light on it. Uh,
Okay.
so excited to be able to dive into that
Wow.
with you. We want to welcome our friends joining us on Twitter, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. But to make sure everything is all set over here on Facebook, and then we will get started with our friends on Amazon Live. If you guys do not have the book yourself, don't worry. You'll be able to get it on Amazon. We've already tagged the link with this particular conversation. So make sure you guys actually head over and do that. Michelle and I had a great conversation on IG Live about her book. A lot of great stuff in this. Whether you're talking about relationships between, more intimate type of relationships or just relationships in general, I think you guys will find something in here that you will appreciate. Michelle, excited to have you on with us. We're going to go ahead. Everything is all set here. We're going to go ahead and bring in Amazon Live, okay?
Okay.
And you all are watching Cyrus Webb Presents here on the Amazon Live platform. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, for this broadcast. Glad you all could join us once again. I appreciate you guys. Feel free to let us know where you're joining us from in the chat. Today we have Michelle Cuttino joining us. She is an author, speaker, and as she says herself, I didn't say this. She says on the back of the book that she's an unsuccessful relationship guru. We're going to ask her about that because she's written this book, The Unsuccessful Relationship Guide. You all can see it there. I'm going to go ahead and highlight it in the carousel there on Amazon Live. As you guys can see, you can get your copy for 12 bucks. I got mine. We're going to talk to Michelle not only about the writing of the book, but the living of the lessons and what it's been like for her now to share that with all of you. Michelle, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
So Michelle, I was thinking to myself today. It's kind of funny. We've been connected for quite some time, but we've talked more this year than we've ever talked. I think in the whole
Yes. I
we've
think so.
been connected. So, and I'm sure a lot of people, because you are used to kind of being a person who shares information, we're not
Mhm.
really used to seeing you literally out front and center. So I want to begin
Not at
there.
all.
What has this experience been like for you to be out, not only talking about your book, but
Mhm.
also talking about you?
Um, it's always incredible to be able to come forth and tell your story and be a little transparent with everybody about everything that's going on with you. And
Right,
sometimes, not even knowing it, you're helping somebody else
right.
with what you've been through or what you're going through, just to have somebody like a kindred spirit that, oh my gosh, they understand me, and they've been there too, and what did they do? So being in front of everybody and everything like that is a little uncomfortable because I'm used to being behind the scenes, asking the questions, not being on a hot seat.
Yeah,
But I'm ready for it.
yeah. So I guess an obvious question would be because, oh yeah, we are in the middle of a worldwide pandemic. So why did you
Mhm.
decide that now was the time that that you wanted to be to be able to talk about relationships and love, and I think the mistakes that both parties can make in the process? Why did you feel like now was the time?
So the one thing that the pandemic taught me was to value time.
Okay.
And I think that was a testament for a lot of different people. Time is valuable, and we
Yeah.
don't have it to waste. And we spend a lot of time on things that are unnecessary, on things that we shouldn't even have to go through.
Hmm.
So during that time, a lot of people were not at work; they were home with family members,
Right.
with children, with their significant others, and a lot called me or contacted me because they were having issues in their relationships. And I was like, oh, I've been there. I can tell you.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
I've done that. I can tell you that too. Okay, so let's walk you through this, that, and the other. And in hearing so much despair, but being able to help a lot of people and guide a lot of people through what they were going through, I said, why not put this into book format? Why not, help them do the work necessary, no matter what the relationship is, so they can get out of that, that little dark period, that little storm that they're going through. So I think with the pandemic, just because everybody was in those close quarters and you got to, deal with a lot more than you may not have dealt with, because you don't spend a lot of time with people because we're out, working and doing everything else.
Right.
It just brought a lot of things to the forefront. And for me, it was the opportune time to sit down and write it, because had I not had that time, you know, it would have never came into fruition.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And you and I both said something that I think the reader, once they get the book, Michelle, which is why I brought it up, and I'm glad you did too. This
Mm-hmm.
book really is for everyone, and a great example of that. And I was trying to make sure because I didn't write the page number down, but it's page 16. Our
Okay.
audience will notice Michelle mentions the work, and you guys can see there. You all have an opportunity to do the work, and there, if you notice, it's for relationships, and you notice there it says for family and friendships too. So it really does kind of run the gamut. I love the fact that you kind of go methodically through all of this, Michelle,
Mm-hmm.
because I have not made it a secret that the reason why I think I have been as successful as I have professionally is that I have not tried to have a real personal life.
Mm-hmm.
I've never felt that was my strong point.
Mm-hmm.
So I leaned into what I believe was my strong
It's so
point,
fun.
which was being able to do this, use my time and my plan, and this brings me a lot of happiness and joy. You take us back to the beginning because I think a lot of times when people are having issues, where they're talking about between family, between friends, or between lovers,
Mm-hmm.
there's somewhere that it begins, and you have the book kind of mapped out where you kind of go back to the beginning, then
Yes.
to the signs. How did you decide how you wanted the book to kind of unfold?
So it unfolded because me, myself, as I said, I am the unsuccessful relationship guru. So what that means in layman terms is, I cannot tell you how to have a successful relationships. Many of my relationships have been extremely toxic, not good for me. I stayed in them way too long. I should have never gotten involved, or when I saw it got to a certain point, I should have left and cut it off. And I didn't, and I stayed, and I, waddled in the pain, and you know,
Hmm.
lost a lot of myself in there. A lot of things were trying to break me. They bent me, but they didn't break me. And so, and me digging myself out of that and still coming out, strong, resilient, feeling like as if I still have room to love. I'm not closed off to relationships at
Yeah.
all, but I wish that I had somebody to tell me how to come out of that dark period. A lot of people's like, oh, get over it, or just leave, or just walk away. And when you're in this situation, it's really hard to do that.
Yeah.
So with me, I had to figure out what was it that was keeping me here, and I had to go back to the beginning. Like, what did I learn about relationships? What was I taught? What did I see? What were my, points of reference to relationships? And when I went back to that and realized that a lot of the women that I, looked up to and admired, they stayed in toxic relationships for,
Mm-hmm.
whatever reasons they wanted to, but they stayed in those toxic relationships and they fought it out, and they just figured like, I'm going to do everything in my power to stay in this relationship. And I thought that's what I was supposed to do. But, as everything changes and, everything moves on and evolves, we have to evolve with it. So relationships now have evolved. So back then it wasn't considered rape if you rape your wife because she's your wife.
Hmm.
Now it's considered rape. So, just like certain things evolve, we had to evolve with it. And I think that's where it was. So I went back to my beginning
Yeah.
to figure out why I was allowing certain things in my now. And then once I got that figured out, I had to do the work on myself to bring me out of that, to figure out, for me, how can I get from point A to point B? And point B was out of this relationship. Now, I'm not
Hmm.
saying that you have to be ready to leave a relationship. It's also if you want to stay, but the decision is all yours.
Right.
And again, it's not just a relationship, it's with family members because there's sibling rivalry.
Hmm.
There's, even children and mothers, parent child relationships that don't work out right. It's not always a love relationship. Sometimes it's other relationships. So any relationship you're in, you really have to go back to the beginning and try to figure out what's your mindset, what's making you think it's okay, or then if you know it's not okay, what's making you stay. So it
Yeah.
really takes you through the process of the work, from beginning to end, to get to the end point, to make a decision as to where you want to go. And once you make that decision, how you can make that decision become a reality.
And Michelle, that is one of the most powerful things that I love about this book. One thing that you're, and again, like I said, I don't, relationships are an area I don't even pretend to know anything about. It's never been something my mom would say, even growing up, I didn't like
Mm-hmm.
to spend time with the family. That's just not my thing. But
Mm-hmm.
the thing that I tell people, at least I know that. So I
Yes.
don't put myself in situations where I know I'm not going to be able to give myself to somebody or give
Mm-hmm.
them the time because I know that's not really of interest of me. And I bring it up because I think the knowing of self is so important.
It
In
is.
the book on page 26, and you have it in other places in the book too, you have different quotes that you
Mm-hmm.
share. I want to read this one that you have on page 26. Set the tone for how you want to be treated. Low standards open the door to high levels of disrespect. And one thing that I've noticed that people do, and I appreciate all of you tuning in on the Amazon Live side, I appreciate you guys over there on YouTube. I see you. Is that we don't like to admit our part in this. We
Yeah.
don't like to. We always like to can talk about what the other person is doing. Now, I'm not saying the other person is not doing anything, but
Mm-hmm.
why is it important for us, as you said in this quote here, Michelle, to make sure that we are being clear about what we are saying we want and how we say we want to be treated?
Because if you're not clear with what you want or how you want to be treated, how do you expect somebody else to be clear in it? You have to
Yeah,
be able to tell people what you want. It's just like if somebody's being mean to you and you don't want to, be treated that way, speak up. I don't want you talking to me that way. If
yeah,
somebody's doing something that's not working for you, you should be able to speak up and say it's not working for me. With me, I was always a little bit more quiet, as loud and rambunctious as I am. I'm very, I guess, closed off. I'm like an introvert. So when it comes to arguing or anything that's going wrong, I do that behind closed doors. I never do public, arguments or anything like that. And whenever it became that, it's just it all just went downhill. But I'm
right.
just not that type of verbal person. So even behind closed doors, sometimes, I'm a little bit more reserved, but you have to take accountability for whatever happens to you. You can't really control other people's actions, but you can control how you react to them, and you can control how they treat you moving forward. So if somebody's not doing something good for you, you can basically say, what you want, what you don't want, what you like, what you dislike, and be okay with that. And if they continue to do so, you can remove yourself out of that situation. Nobody's forcing you to be in that situation. And I think that's what a lot of us don't understand. We feel like as if we have to be there. We have to hold on. We
Yeah,
have to be, with that family member. Oh, it's my mother. Oh, it's my brother. Oh, I love him. Doesn't make a difference. No matter who it is, you deserve to be respected. You deserve to be treated the way you want to be treated. And if you're not getting that from that relationship, you have a right to remove yourself from that relationship. And it's okay. And we
yeah,
have to understand that. But you have to first take accountability and know that you're the reason that you're in a relationship, because you're not moving out of it. You're not making any
right.
moves to fix it. You have to fix what's broken with you. No one else can fix that. So you have to do the work.
That's it. It's such an important thing. I want to say for those who are just tuning in, you are watching Cyrus Webb Presents here on the Amazon Live platform, also streaming on other outlets as well. Appreciate you guys joining us on Amazon Live side. If you have not done so already, feel free to click below on Amazon. You'll notice a follow button that is there. Feel free to give us a follow to keep updated with all of our broadcasts. We're on 7 days a week here on the Amazon.com platform. Today we're speaking with author and, as she calls herself, I'm not saying this, she calls herself the unsuccessful relationship guru. Michelle Cuttino is our guest. I put her information there in the chat, and her book is below. It's called The Unsuccessful Relationship Guide. It's available right now on Amazon. I have the print edition here. You'll find my review there on Amazon as well. Michelle, it's interesting the way the book is broken up. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's a lot of space, and I didn't mention this the first time you and I talked, but there's a lot of space for people to do the work until they get to one particular part of the book, and that's
Mm-hmm.
narcissism. So why?
Woo,
So
baby.
I want to talk about that because I'm sure because it's your book, you noticed that before that you had prompts, you asked
Mm-hmm.
questions, But when you got to the narcissism part, you really started going in. What was it about that topic, or what is it about that topic that you feel like made you want to be able to really go there with that?
It's really hard to love a narcissist
Hmm. Yeah.
because you don't realize they're a narcissist. And so you are trying everything in your power to please someone who'll never be pleased.
Mm.
And once they see that you're moving away from them, they'll gaslight you, love bomb you, call, do everything because they like the control of it all. They like to feel empowered. They like to feel important.
Yeah.
And so they do everything that they need to do to keep you where you need to be, but they're not really interested. It's more of a power thing for them. It's more of a, I can make this puppet dance type thing.
Yeah.
And it's really what can they get out of it and not you. So when it comes to narcissism, we really sometimes miss those signs. We don't know them. So what I did was I broke down all the signs. If
Yeah.
you see this, if this happens, if they're this way, if it's that way. And when it comes to narcissism, there's no work that you have to do. If you're dealing with the narcissist, run. That's it. You can't fix them. They
Mm.
cannot be fixed, not by you.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like anybody should have to uh deal with the toxicity of narcissistic people.
Right.
It's really, really hard to be in that type of situation. It's so one-sided, and it breaks you. It really does, because it makes you think like you're the problem when you're not the problem. But they're so good at what they do, you drive yourself crazy trying to figure out why can't he love me, why can't she do this, why can't it be this way, what can I do, did I do this, did I do that, well, maybe I really did do that. You start questioning yourself, and it's all a part of their plan. That's why, with narcissism, I really break it down for everybody. And if you feel like that's the situation, whether it's a loved one, a family member, whomever, if
Yeah.
they are narcissistic, then you need to know that if it's a family member and you have to deal with them, keep it surface. You can't
Yeah.
go deeper than the surface. And if it's a loved one, cut ties immediately as best you can. Run.
And Michelle, this is where this gets interesting, though, because you begin this part on page 69 of the book talking about
Mhm.
narcissism. You say before you start self-reflection, we talked about about ourselves. You said let's dig a little deeper into who you're really dealing with. Take off the rose-colored glasses.
Yes.
Delve into who they've shown themselves to be. Do you find that women have a harder time with this than men? Because I've heard some women say, "Well, I can change him," or he just maybe maybe never met anyone like me. Or do you
Mhm.
find like we're equal opportunity offenders when it comes to this?
I will say women more so than men. We are very emotional creatures. When we love hard.
Hmm.
We put everything into it. So we feel like as if we're giving up our vulnerabilities to somebody who's supposed to protect them and secure them. So when we let our guard down, we feel like as if the person that we're letting our guard down to is the person that deserves that. So it's okay for us to say things or do things or be a certain type of way and allow a lot of behaviors that we wouldn't otherwise allow because this person has our best interests at heart.
Yeah,
However, sometimes it just doesn't happen that way,
yeah.
unfortunately.
And I want to be clear for our audience, not saying that us guys we don't do it too, but I just
We
I,
do it
I
too,
hear
but
a
just
lot
not,
of
not as
times.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I hear a lot of times you hear more women who will say, "Oh, I can change it. Oh, he just
Of
hasn't met
course.
the right one, or
Yeah.
it's just gonna take some time."
And it's like you this is your partner.
Yeah,
You're not his mother, you're not his therapist or her mother
right.
or her therapist. That's not your job. Your job is not to change them.
Hmm.
Your job is to work on the relationship and not one individual person within that relationship. And if they're not ready for a relationship, there's no need for you to center yourself around getting them ready for that relationship because you may not be the right person once they find themselves.
Yeah,
So a lot of times you got to take off those rose-colored glasses and stop looking at the fantasy. We all look at the fantasy. Well, when he did this, it was great. When we, go on those trips, they're great. When we, have sex, it's amazing. But that's not 24 hours out of the day, 7 days a week. For 21 hours of the day, 6 days a week, he or she is getting on your last nerve.
Yeah. Right.
You know, so pay attention to the realness of that and not the fantasy of those small, minute moments that may or may not, have a lasting impression on you. We tend to hold on to the small things because we want this to work and overlook the bad things. And this book is making you take a cold, hard look at the bad things. Take off the rose colored glasses, stop living in that fantasy world, and deal with your reality.
Yeah.
And that's what's important.
You say on page 71, in talking about dealing with a narcissist, you very bluntly say this, Michelle. If
Hmm.
your partner is a narcissist, get out now. You
Yes.
will not be able to change them for the better, no matter what you do. Do not internalize their behavior. Their actions are all about them, and they have absolutely nothing to do with you. And that's why, again, I asked you that about if you found it was more so for because, you know, I think it's interesting, but that just really shows the manipulation that can take place, also, right, in some of
Definitely.
these relationships, where people feel like that they make you feel like their shortcomings are your fault.
Hmm.
If you weren't like this, I wouldn't be like
This.
be like
And,
this.
and it's a
And
classic case even in
yeah,
domestic violence situations where,
yeah,
the abuser is like, oh, well, if you weren't so this, I wouldn't hit you.
hmm,
You're a grown person. You have control of your emotions. You don't have to be physical. You choose to
yeah,
be physical. No matter what I did or what I said, did not warrant a slap across my face, did not warrant a black eye, did not
mhm,
warrant any of that. But you're going to still sit as a narcissist or an abuser and try to justify your actions because of something that I did. I know that we are emotional and some of us do act off emotions and it can happen. But at the end of the day, you can't change people's behavior unless they want to change them themselves.
yeah. I want to back away for a second, Michelle, and ask you this. I've held this up now a couple of times. What was it like for you when you first held the book in your hand?
Amazing. So I held it up. I was like, oh my God, because it came out so great. It
Mhm.
really embodied what I wanted to embody. It just ran exactly the way I pictured and I envisioned it to look, to feel, and everything. It's just incredible when you hold your baby for the first time. So
Yeah.
that's something I gave birth to. I put my whole self into it. I gave birth to it. And to be able to hold it in my hand, it was precious. It was really precious.
So now that the world is able to read it, and we're having conversations, you're having conversations. We want other people to have these conversations because they're
Mhm.
so important for us all. What is your hope? I mean, part of the book is entertaining. I think it's definitely engaging because of your style of being able to speak to the reader. But
Mhm.
when they go through it, what is your hope it does for them?
My hope is that they come out with a better understanding of who they are and what they want
Hmm.
in any relationship. When we're in a good space with ourselves and the people around us, we flourish, we succeed, we do better in life. When you're in a miserable space or you have misery around you and you're surrounded by people who aren't doing anything or putting you down or anything like that, you don't blossom. You might as well be dead. It just doesn't do anything for you. So
Right.
I'm hoping that through this book, if anybody's going through any type of relationship that they feel is not a good one for them, but they don't know how to cut ties or figure out a way to make it better, moving forward, that they can use this book to really get to the work to see what it is that they really want. And it's a relationship guide, but the gist of it is really, where do you want this relationship to be? What do you want and what do you need out of life? And
Mhm.
once you figure that out, then the relationship part is easy.
And how often would you say, because one of the chapters in the book is your 24/7 daily reminders, and I
Mhm.
think it's one of those things, one of the mistakes I think we all make in a lot of situations, but definitely in our engagement with people, is we think it's a one and done.
It's
Did
not.
you know when it came to yourself that these are things you have to practice daily?
Yeah, because I had to do it daily. This baby of mine
Hmm.
is actually my work. I actually did all of these things to get me out of a really dark space. And when I did all of those things, it worked for me. I tested this on a few other people. It worked for them. So it really is, the formula to get you where you need to be. And it's really hard, when you're trying to help people or guide people, because people tend not to be truthful with themselves.
Right.
We lie to ourselves. We want to
Right.
make ourselves look good in our own story. So
Right.
we'll lie to ourselves. So this book makes it impossible to lie to yourself.
Mm.
You know, you have to be truthful with yourself, and there's no way around it.
Again, everyone, Michelle Cuttino has been our guest. The Unsuccessful Relationship Guide out now. We have it highlighted there on Amazon.com. Go ahead and click below to be able to order your own copy of the book and become a part of this very important conversation. And the big takeaway from me, Michelle, in this is that it all begins with us.
Yes.
We have to set the stage. We have to be able to know who we are, what we will and will not accept, and what we will or will not deal with. One thing you said, I didn't go into it because it is, you're right, a personal thing, and that is, do
Hmm.
you stay or not? You talk about that if something does happen, you know, the decision to stay. And if so, what you should not be doing if
Yeah,
you
moving forward.
to stay, and things happen, happen again. I mean, it's such an important conversation, I think, but we don't do it enough. So definitely invite
Mhm.
you guys to get the book. Michelle, how can they stay connected with you?
You can email me at uh I'm so sorry, I just went blank for a moment. Info
No, yeah,
info at healthinhealingcoaching.com.
mhm,
I'm on social media. My handle for each social media platform is at Michelle Cuttino. So it's very simple. And my website is michellecutino.com.
it's made it very easy for you all. Michelle, another great conversation. I know we have many more to go. Looking forward to catching back up with you again.
Me too. Thanks so much, Cyrus. I appreciate you.
Oh, more than welcome. And we thank you all for tuning in to another great episode of Cyrus Webb Presents. Again, make sure you guys get Michelle's book, The Unsuccessful Relationship Guide, out now on Amazon. Again, for those joining us on the Amazon Live side, you can just click below to be able to add it to your shopping cart. And don't forget to check out. And make sure you guys are staying connected with Michelle. If you're joining us on the socials, we've already tagged her there. Until next time, you all make it a great one. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care.
Take care.